video about Toy Story again. Toasted and beyond!
In part 1, we talked about how to get that plasticky Pixar look on your models inside of Element 3D. In parts 2 and 3, we built the Toy Story 4 logo. And in part 4, which is this video, we're gonna texture, light, and animate. So let's get going. To get the colors of the textures, I actually just sampled the colors from the actual reference itself. So if I hover my mouse over a color or an area that I want to sample, if we look in the info panel that's at the upper right of the screen, if we look at the info panel, we see an RGB value. So I just looked at the colors that I wanted to sample, and then I wrote those down, and I went into Element to input those particular values. And I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm actually going to use when I created this project earlier, I went ahead and actually created some of this stuff already. So as you can see right here, I've got the toy, I've got the story, and I've got the background, and I've got the 4. So I've got the toy highlighted, and I'm going to click on that. Didn't do it. There we go. So there we go. So that's got my colors in there already. I'm going to go to the story. I'm going to click on story, and that is good. I'm going to look back or on plate, click on background, and then I'm going to go to 4 and click on 4. And there's probably going to be some adjusting that we're going to have to do. So let's just click OK. And I'm going to unsolo this layer. And there we go. I mean, that's kind of the basic gist of it right there. And as you can see, this story and this, actually, let's change this to a custom view. And we'll grab our camera tool and kind of move around here. As you can kind of see, how kind of things are kind of positioned in the back. So let's actually I think we might want to move group 2, which is our story layer. I think we want to move this back in Z space a little bit so it sits on top of that background plate. And then actually what we could do is we could take group 2 and group 3 nulls, and we can move them together and kind of push them back a little bit more so that they're a little bit further back in space. And then we can go back to our active camera view, and we can kind of see where that is right now. So if we actually look at, now that we have the textures kind of in scene or in place where we want them, as you can actually see, the 4, we're going to have to adjust the 4 and the Y, and actually probably the T, actually all of these, because I think the blue needs to be a little bit beefed up. So actually let's do that real quick. So let's go back into the scene setup here. Let's go into 4. I'm going to actually clean my texture palette up a little bit, and I'm going to remove unused materials. So we're here at the number 4. So let's go back to material view. So I have 2 materials. I have a yellow and I have the blue, and I want to increase the size of the blue. I actually think I'm going to increase the size of the extrusion a little bit as well too. I'm going to push it back in Z space a little bit. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn on ambient occlusion so I can kind of see a little bit easier kind of where the contacts are happening. So I'm going to move this into place a little bit, and some keystrokes or some things to keep in mind when you're navigating the scene setup. So if you left click, it gives you kind of the orbit tool. If you hold down the space bar and then left click, you can actually pan left, right, up, and down. And then I have a scroll wheel, so I'm kind of zooming in and out with that. And then of course you could right click to get kind of a contextual menu. But a lot of people don't know that if you hold down space, you can pan left and right. So that's actually a really kind of good thing to know. So anyway, I put that back there, and then I want to increase the size of the blue. So let's see, where are we here? So expand edges. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Nope, that didn't take. That actually went down. There we go. So let's hop on out and see if that... okay, it's getting there. I think the 4 I think we probably could change the size here a little bit. I'm not going to change it that much. So let's go back into, let's go back and change the bevel size a little bit as well too. And I'm going to increase that a little bit. There we go. I'm going to call that done. So actually we need to increase the blue part of the toy as well too. We need to increase this. Oh, something to note here. So I have 2 bevel copies on toy and on 4. And you go to the bevel copies here underneath the custom path and you select that. And this gives you 2 different, basically 2 different bevel layers. And on bevel 2 here, which is the blue layer, I activated the bevel outline. So typically this is what it is, but if you enable this, it takes that path and it outlines it along the path, which is really, really great. So I want to increase the bevel size, make this a little bit beefier, and let's see what that looks like. And that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so now that we have that in place, so now we're going to move on to lighting. The first thing I want to do actually is I want to go into the scene setup, and I'm going to enable the environment parameter. So this is the default environment that comes with Element. I'm actually going to change this, and I'm going to change this. Let's see, where's my environments here? So there's my environments. Here's my basic environments. I'm going to change this to, let's see, I have some, I bought the backlight pack. And so I'm going to change this to actually something that's got a little bit more. There we go. This is a little, this kind of gives me kind of a lot of the specular pops that I kind of wanted to get in this. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the scene. And already that kind of changes a lot of the look of kind of where some of the basic lighting is. But a lot of this is going to really pop once we start adding lights. And I'm going to, actually, let me hide these layers first. I'm going to hide all of these layers. I'm going to toggle the switch. I'm going to turn the shy layer on that. I'm going to activate the shy. There we go. So that's all kind of clean and wonderful. And actually I can turn off the reference layer for now. So I want to now, I'm going to copy, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to copy. Let's see, where's the logo here? Here's the logo. I'm going to copy the lights from the previous project. I'm going to copy, and there we go. Bring them in here, and okay, all right. Well, we're still looking a little weird, a little funky, and some of that has to do with the fact that we need to turn the shadows and the ambient occlusion on in Element. So let's go into render settings. Let's go to shadows, and we'll enable that. And already we're actually kind of seeing some of the things. Let me go back and turn this reference on. So let's look at that. So we can see that the shadows are kind of dropping onto the text below it. And that's some of the things that we want to try and to achieve, which is, and the way that I did that was actually with my parallel light. So, excuse me, parallel light kind of, inside of After Effects, a parallel light is also an infinite light, or like sunlight. So that's what the parallel light does for After Effects. So when we enable the shadows, we immediately start seeing some of the shading that we need for this particular scene. I changed this to ray tracing because ray tracing is going to give me more realistic shadows. But you can see right away that that this is kind of looking a little grainy, so we can increase the shadow samples. And when you increase the samples, just do it kind of sparingly. I would only go as high as what you need, because that's if you start adding more samples than you need, come render time, it's going to be a huge render hit. So we've turned on shadows. Let's turn on ambient occlusion. And again, with ambient occlusion, I'm going to change this to ray trace. And ooh, that looks gross. And that has a lot to do with the ambient occlusion settings. But before I do that, I want to do one other thing. I'm going to go back into the physical environment. And as you can see here, let's show the background. So this is our environment background that we have back in Element, and I'm actually going to kind of rotate this a little bit because I want to get some of that stuff on the underbelly of some of these letters to kind of give it kind of a little bit of a pop. And the other thing that I did was I added, let's turn that back off. So I also added some additional lighting, and I went and I added the 360 lights right here, and that gave me an additional kind of hit that I wanted. But the textures don't really look right now, and that's primarily because we need to change some of the settings in the ambient occlusion. So we'll go here and let's decrease the spread, which is part of the problem. And as you can see right away, the yellow in the toy really kind of starts to pop a little bit more as we start to bring this down a little bit just into kind of the edges right there. We'll do that. We could probably bring the intensity down a little bit as well too. While we're here, I'm just going to bring it down just a tad. Okay, so I'm going to call that done for now. And from here on out, it's pretty much just all keyframes and animation. And actually, let me go ahead and open up, where's this logo here? So if we open up the element layer, let's open this up a little bit right here. I'm going to open this up a little bit. So, I mean, this is pretty much just the, I'm going to actually turn this down to quarter resolution, and I'm going to turn this down to preview. So, so we can kind of see, actually, I'm going to turn this, where are we here? I'm going to turn that off for now. Okay. So, let's move this to draft so we can actually see this quickly. So as you can kind of see right here, I animated the T, the O, and the Y in on their own using the auxiliary animation system. And then the plaque, I animated the null object. Actually, let's open up these guys as well too. So as you can kind of see right here, so number 3, that's the red plaque. And then of course I've got the 4 kind of animating in and everything like that. Now, the only other thing that I wanted to kind of show you that I did, which you can't really, it's hard to really kind of see right here, is I actually used Element's built-in animation engine to animate the story text in. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how I went ahead and did that. So let's go back into this particular layer. Actually, what I want to do before I get too far is I'm going to take this the story text, and I'm going to move it a little bit more. Okay, that's not working, so I'm going to move it along the Z space here, pushing it back, and I want to bring it up. Where are we? There we are. I want to look to see where it is against this. Oh, that's too far. So I want it to be right here, but I want that story to actually be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to pop into Element real quick, and I'm going to go into scene setup. I'm going to go to story. Yeah, I'm going to beef that out a little bit. So let's take the bevel. Let's extrude this a little bit more. Give it a little bit more of an extrusion. We'll change, bring up the bevel a little bit more. And I think that's probably a little bit better. Yeah, that works for me. So, so here's what I did with the story. So I used Element's internal animation engine to animate the story into it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to isolate the story text. So I'm going to turn off group 1. I'm going to turn off group 3, and I'm going to turn off group 4. So all we have is this story text, and I'm going to turn the layer controls off. So all we have is this story text. So I wanted to animate in the letters individually. And so the way that I did this is I used the internal animation engine. And this works by animating one group or basically animating one group into another. So since this is kind of where the rest position is, group 2 is going to be my finish group, and I'm going to leave that there. Now, since I have something on group 1, group 3, and group 4, I can't use those groups, but I do have group 5. So here's what I need to do to set this up. So let's go into scene setup. Let's go to story. Let's get the story text here. And I'm going to twirl this down. Let's go to story. Let's hit duplicate model. And then I'm going to bring this down purely for organizational purposes. And I'm going to change this from group 2 to group 5. Okay, so now that I have that set up, so there we go. And there we go. It's nice and big. So group 5 is set up and it's activated. So how do I make this happen? So group 2 is going to be my finisher group and group 5 is going to be my start group. But they look nothing like each other. And you could actually just turn on the animation engine and then animate this, and that would animate into place. But as you can see right here, it's just the word that's moving into place. And it's not moving, it's not starting off screen, which is what I want it to do. So we need to go into, well, first let's do this. I'm going to turn the animation engine off. So we see both groups here. So I want to take group 2. And I actually want to go into group utilities and twirl down, copy paste group. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go into the group 5 utilities, and I'm going to paste this. And so now they're exactly the same. Okay, that's awesome, wonderful. So, but one other thing that I need to do is I actually need to go into the particle look, and I need to enable multi-object for each of these. So I enabled it for group 5, and I'm enabling it for group 2, multi-object, enable group 2. Okay, so there we go. So I have both of those groups enabled. That's all fine and dandy. So again, group 2 is our finish group. So if we go into group 5, which is our start group, and then we change some of the rotation parameters, we can kind of start to see what's going to happen or what's going to go on. So these letters, so group 5 is, actually, let's go back into our animation engine. Actually, I'm not going to turn that on right now. So so now that we've rotated the individual letters. Now the other thing that I need to do is I need to move group 5 back in, or I should say more towards the camera like this. So now when I animate it, come on, there we go. So now when I animate this on, it's going to come from behind the camera. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So I'm going to animate this from behind. There we go. I want to move this to be just behind the camera. And I could do this probably one step at a time. Oh, what happened there? There we go. So, all right, let's move this back. There we go. So let's move this right there. So it's just behind the camera. So now if I were to, actually one of the other things I could probably do, I changed the Y rotation. Let's change some of the other rotation elements of this, and let's make this kind of look a little interesting. The other thing I could do is I could change the displace a little bit, and I can make these a little bit displaced. So now when I go into, let's turn this on. Now I go here, and now we see nothing. And that's because we need to animate this animation parameter from 0 to 100%. I'm actually going to, let's change this from full render to draft. There we go. So now we can see right away, this is animating each letter in at once. And because I changed all of those other parameters from the start group, it's animating in kind of a nice, interesting way. And so that's how I set up the story part of this. So if we go back to, let's go back to the preview here. I got to RAM preview this again. So as this RAM previews, again, it's kind of hard to see It's kind of hard to see the story text animating individually like we just saw in the example, but that's basically how I set that up. And then, of course, everything else is animated in accordingly. Since this tutorial has gone on a bit longer than expected, I'm going to stop right here. So that's it for this video. We've already talked about how to get that plasticky Pixar look on your model. We built the logo, we've lit, we've textured, and we've animated the logo. In the next video, I want to talk about how I created this American flag background that's behind the character. I use a lot of BORIS Effects SAPPHIRE plugins, and there's a really, really great American flag preset that actually allows you to get kind of those wavy background elements. And I'll show that to you in the next video. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching these videos. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. And if you got value out of this video and you want to see more of it, definitely hit that like button. Also, please smash that subscribe button in 2019 style, as Peter McKinnon says. I don't know why. Well, Peter, why do you say that? Why do you say smash it 2019 style? I don't understand that. Well, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Bye for now. I mean, we do have that little poop song video. If you haven't watched that, you better watch that poop song video.
You used to call that hop.
Hop the copter.